Yeah, of course. So they're a fantastic community-led organisation, and they're supporting young people and young adults who are arriving in the UK from Eritrea, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Somalia, who have often, as so many of us know, faced really traumatic journeys to get here. And Dario's mission is to make them feel at home and supported in their community when they arrive, and advocate for them through their casework. Did you get that?
I think so. I just want to double check with Tom though about, did you get feedback there as well? Did you get
Sorry if I have it up.
No, I don't. I think.
Okay.
So sorry about that, Hope.
Don't worry, it's
I had
fine.
the worst feedback there, but that seems to be much better. But I did catch bits of that, which is, so it's all about getting refugees and making them feel more welcome when they get here. Is that right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
an amazing cause. But you guys are also a charity or doing good things, aren't you? Could you tell us a little bit more about, you're from School Food Matters. Could you tell us a little bit more about what School Food Matters is?
Yeah, of course. So one of the reasons we wanted to support Dario Youth was because they run some great projects, all to do with food. And as you can see in our title, School Food Matters. So we're a charity that exists to teach children about food and improve their access to food during their time at school. But that's healthy and sustainable food, not just any sort of food. And we do this through a range of projects which involve lots of food education, from growing to cooking. And Dario Youth have a club called Injera Club, and they make home-cooked food for the young asylum seekers every week. And I think we also realised how important, well, food is to connect people. When we did recently a project called Breakfast Boxes, and that was during a recent lockdowns where we would deliver healthy breakfast boxes to vulnerable families in London. And a lot of the families that we supported were no recourse to public funds families. So yeah, this cause is very close to our own mission.
Absolutely. I just it's almost like we're kind of two sides of the same coin, aren't we? Because we're trying to hit the exercise and you guys are trying to hit
I know, I was thinking that as I was saying, because food and exercise go hand in hand.
Absolutely, and you are what you eat. I definitely believe that, although sometimes I think I eat terribly, but
yeah, I've been so much hungrier this week because of doing all this swimming and cycling.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's good to know though. So appetite's coming up. That's going to lead me nicely on to how do you feel like you're getting on with Race the Thames? How's it all going?
Yeah, it's good. We kicked it off with a run together, a few of us in the office on Monday, which was nice. And I know we've all been busy doing different activities. I think there's been some rowing. I've been doing quite a lot of swimming. And yeah, lots of running as well, cycling. It's been good.
Fantastic. Did you guys then sort of go into it with a bit of a strategy? Did you have a plan, or have you just been going just seeing how it goes?
I think our name probably reflects our approach, scrambled legs. I think with high energy and commitment to getting the mileage in, but perhaps more of a let's just do our best attitude.
Let's just get at it. I think sometimes that's actually the best way to do it, because then you can kind of surprise yourself. So that's cool.
That's true.
Yeah, fantastic. How do you since you're kind of going into it just trying to get it done? How are you guys staying motivated to get out there and get the miles done?
We have a team page, as obviously quite a lot of us are working in schools regularly or from home. So that's been nice, sharing lots of photos with each other. I know there's been some dogs involved in some running as well, which has been good motivation. And obviously just Dara Youth, we've been in touch with them lots, and seeing that their Enduro Club was just earlier this week, that's just, motivating to know that it's going towards a good cause. And of course, your cause as well. I mean, it's, as you say, food and exercise, the two sides of the coin. It's great.
Oh, so I also find that when I kind of share things with my friends, I get things done so much easier. It's just so much more fun. And that's what we're all about. It sounds like you too. It's not just about exercise and about nutrition, but the community. Yeah. And when you do things together, that's when it's really magic. So that's really cool that you guys are kind of exemplifying that in your approach to the challenge. I love it. Love it. So aside from making sure that you're kind of getting together and keeping each other informed on what you're doing, do you have any other tips or tricks to anybody who might be struggling a bit with the challenge this week or for next year maybe?
Yeah. Oh, good question. Keep stretching. I know that's basic, but in our Monday morning meeting, we always do a team stretch, which goes down well. So yeah, I think stretching is a good one.
I feel like we should do that. I'm gonna just put that out there. Team stretch, London Youth Rowing. No. No. That sounds like a great idea to me.
Yeah, we can do one now.
Do you have any favourite stretches you want to give to us? Give us a stretch.
Spelling your name with your hips. That's quite a good one.
Ooh.
And a lot of tree hugging. That's quite nice,
Should we all do a tree hug?
I've done a fair bit of stretching in my time, but I've never tried to spell my name with my hips before. That's definitely sounds like a good one.
I have my primary school maths teacher to blame for that one, and it's managed to stick all this time.
I think that needs to be an LYR staple from now on. That's before every session.
Yeah,
it works.
And if they've got a short name, maybe they could spell School Food Matters instead.
That sounds great.
Final question for you guys is, does School Food Matters have any big plans for the weekend to do that final push for mileage?
So, I mean, we sort of focus so much on our beginning kickoff run. I know that we have to be done by 2 p.m, isn't it, on Monday? So I think there might be quite a lot of early morning runs being squeezed in on Monday, or I'm hoping to try and go to a disco spin class with one of the team as well. So we'll try and get some kilometers in then.
Disco spin sounds like great fun.
Yeah, I know, it does sound really good.
And everything over the weekend counts. So all the dog walking and all that activity, I'm sure you'll get to the finish line.
Yeah, that's a really good reminder. Thank you. And then we're hopefully going to, once we know how much we've fundraised, head to the Enduro Club at Dara Youth and volunteer or see it all in action. So that'll be lovely.
Oh, fantastic. Well, do get some video for us to help promote that. That would be fantastic to see.
Definitely. Thanks so much for organising this event. It's just fantastic seeing so many people getting involved.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'll let you talk, Andy.
No, sorry. I say, well, I mean, it's been quite an incredible week. We reach out to a lot of young people, but being the sport we are, we're quite internally focused. So to kind of not just open the doors, but blow open the doors with Race The Thames. It's incredible to see the community that can get involved in what we do. But I've got one quick question. The food boxes you were organising through the lockdown. I mean, that must have been an amazing connection with people. And we had to change as a charity how we delivered, because obviously we couldn't get out to the schools. We learned a lot about the way we engage, the things we engage, our measures of success. The whole lot was kind of remeasured. And what were the learnings for you as a charity going through that process of what you do normally and actually the differences that you saw during that time?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we were basically our funder, one of our funders, Impact on Urban Health. So we have a project with them called Healthy Zones, which is a project I work on, where we're working closely with schools in Southwark and Lambeth to ensure the food environments that children spend time in are as healthy as possible. And it's easy to be healthy at school. So obviously that was very much hands-on with clubs and writing food policies in schools and with staff and parents and pupils. And that had to be completely put on hold. So as you say, we rethought. Impact on Urban Health was super flexible and fantastic, and decided that delivering food boxes that were potentially ways to also make sure people had access to healthy foods and started to enjoy maybe more fruits and healthy carbs in their diets, was a really nice lead into then when schools did reopen, being able to have already connected with those groups of people. Yeah, it's funny thinking back to it now. Lots of virtual beekeeping sessions online as well. Yeah, we got used to the virtual classroom. But it's really great to be back in person on all the projects now. It's really nice.
Yeah. And did you think that either through the pandemic or after the pandemic, the kind of health eating message, that sort of wellness and that necessity to look after ourselves and the people with, did the pandemic hit that hard, or did it in some way have a positive impact on that messaging?
Yeah, I think everybody's awareness of health and the importance of being healthy has risen, and the importance of moving your body, having been so cooped up for so long. And hopefully the government pick up on the energy around national food strategy, which is all around ensuring that healthy food is top of the agenda in everything we do. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, as my coach used to say, you've got to fuel the engine if you want to go and do something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. Well, any more questions from anybody?
No, I was actually going to ask, hi, Samuel here.
Hi, Sam.
I was actually going to ask the same question that Andy actually asked, especially during the pandemic. There was obviously a lot of negative, but with charities, there's also a lot of positives in the way charities connected with other people, especially through the internet. Because I did something with a primary school that I used to go to, and they were also delivering food for families that were struggling in the pandemic. And hearing what you guys were doing puts a smile on my face, because it's really it helps families and shows that they're not alone.
Absolutely.
They're not alone. But yeah, it's just brilliant what you guys are doing.
Oh, thank you. Same with that person that you just spoke about, or that organization.
Yeah.
It was great how people all came together so much as well and shared resources, and yeah, amazing to see across London and beyond.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, it's been I think we've seen a lot of inspirational stories. We've seen some amazing teams get involved. You and your supporters have done an amazing job with fundraising, obviously for yourself, but also for us. And it feels like we definitely need to kind of keep tabs together. And if there's anything we can do together at schools, I think that's an absolute no-brainer.
Absolutely.
So I'm pretty sure we're definitely in the same areas in London. But over to Rebecca. But thank you so much from my side, and it's been great to have you guys on board.
Not at all. Thank you very much as well.
Well, thank you so much to you, Hope, and to School Food Matters. You guys have been absolutely fantastic, and can't wait to see the miles come in from your disco spin class. That sounds really cool. And as Andy said, we'll be working together in the future, because exercise, good food, all coming together to make us happier, healthier, more confident, and more healthy individuals ready to battle anything that comes our way, including Race the Thames.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. If you've got any questions for us, or if you want to stay on for Alex Gregory, you're very welcome to, but you're free to just chill out now. Thank you, Hope.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest is he's a rowing friend of mine, double Olympic champion. He wrote a book called Dad Ventures, which is all about sort of dad spending more time with their kids, and he's a big outdoor advocate. His whole book is sort of little tips and tricks to sort of have fun with kids outside, which is really cool. But he's I kind of describe him as the crew maker. He's the guy he's always a friendly face. He's such a legend.
Oh wow!
His lockdown project was to build a what do you call it? Like a trailer, like an old gypsy trailer. So he got the base, the metal base, and the metal wheels, and he built this thing on top. And I'm hoping he's going to do his interview from there because it's a nice little space. But he also, I saw him a few months ago, and his present to me was 3 African giant snails, little tiny babies, which are now sitting on our kitchen top, steadily growing, and they're kind of like that size now.
Wow.
So he's an absolute legend. So yeah, so feel free. Should be on in about sort of 5 minutes.
Oh, amazing. I have to slip off by 12, so if I rudely leave at 12, that is why. Would it be better if I left now for the recording, or what's best?
Well, I think we've probably held we've held the live broadcast, and with the recording we'll cut up the recording, so that's not a problem. But I think if you need to get away, then I think you've got important work to do. So it's been really nice to meet you.
Yeah, really nice to meet you, and it's really nice to hear a bit more about all the schools you're in as well, and it's fantastic what you're doing. So thank you for interviewing us and having us on board.
No, who's your
if you ever
marshal?
want to expand into Leeds, just let me know.
Well, I felt a bit bad on the interview. I was focusing very much on London, but we do have projects in I should have said that. If you ever have any messaging, please say we do have some projects in the north as well, and we're trying to expand into Liverpool, and we've got some in Dorset as well. So yeah, it's not just London.
Yeah, good.
But yeah, sorry, Andy, you were saying.
Yeah, no. Who's your contact? Is it you've got a marshal, I assume, which hopefully you're in contact with.
A contact? Do you mean from
with
your side? Yeah, I think Lena, or is Lena not the right?
Yeah. Lena's your marshal. And I was just trying to think in terms of, if you pop Lena an email, or I'll try and remember to send you an email as well. And then, if there's any link ups we can do, any joint projects at partner schools, then that'd be awesome.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much. And good luck with your next interview. It sounds really interesting. I'll definitely be sure to watch it later.
Okay. All right. Well, look, have a great day. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cool. Pleasure to introduce Alex Gregory to the platform today. Alex is a good friend of mine. We go back a few years in rowing. He's kind of what I like to think is the crew maker. You put him in any boat and he's going to make the boat go faster. He has, not only is he an amazing rower, strong rower, but he has team ethic down to an absolute T. Platform today, Alex is right. Who's that? Is that me or Alex? We go back a few years. Yeah, Alex, that's our live feed coming back to bite you.
Okay, got it. Turned it off.
Cool. All right, I'll start that again. So it's a great pleasure to have Alex on the platform today. He's not only a great friend of mine, but we go a long way back in rowing. He's a double Olympic champion. But not only rowing, he's written a book and he's starting up some great new ventures. And when I knew him, when I rowed with him, he was the crew maker. You could put him in whichever boat and he would make the boat go faster. An amazing talent in the sport, and everyone who's met him has come off better for knowing him. So Alex, thank you for your time today. Great to see you again.
Andy, you're making me blush. It's very kind words. I'm not sure they're all true, but I appreciate them. Thank you.
Well, I'm only going off by what everyone else says. So by popular opinion. Hey, Breggers, look, so first of all, off the bat, what have you been doing since retiring from rowing? What have you done with your time?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I finished rowing in 2016. I think it was the same time. Yeah, same time as you, Andy. We crossed the line in Rio and walked away from competing in the sport, at least. And to be honest, I didn't have any idea really what I was going to do. I didn't have a particular direction. I was just pleased to take a breather, I suppose. And I loved the first 6 months of that. And then after 6 months, I woke up in a cold sweat and didn't know who I was anymore, what I was doing. And I think we all probably find ourselves in that position at some point in our lives. 6 months after my retirement from sport happened, that was it. That was the day for me. And then within a day, I found myself signed up for an Arctic rowing expedition where I ended up joining a crew there were 6 of us in total on this ocean rowing boat, which are often seen rowing across the Atlantic now. There's a very popular Atlantic rowing race these days. So we were in the same kind of boat as that, and we rowed north, as far north as we could get until we hit the permanent ice sheet, and then we rowed south towards Iceland. We got caught up in a storm and ended up on this deserted volcanic island, and we got stuck there for 2 weeks because no one goes there, so we couldn't get off the island. But it was the most amazing, terrifying, terrible, but wonderful experience. But as a result of that, I kind of came up with the idea that I wanted to it made me realize what was important to me in my life, which was my children, and spending time with my children, being with my children. I was out on the ocean and I wasn't with my children. So I ended up writing a book called Adventures, which is about spending time and making memories together as a parent, whether you're a mother or a father. It's called Dadventures because I'm a dad, but it's the kind of things that we like to do to get outside, to spend time together. Sorry, I'm rambling on. I'm on here. 5 years. It's been a long time.
Well, you've definitely filled it. I mean, I've definitely not. What was it? Written a book, been across the Atlantic, setting up my own business. I mean, you're on and you've built the room you're in as well.
Yeah, that's true. This is my own handicraft, but I wouldn't do that again. It was a painful process. No one can employ me as a carpenter, that's for sure.
Is that right? Well, it looks like you've done a pretty good job. Look, from your time in rowing, you've obviously, I think, probably learned a lot from your time in rowing, and it sounds like you've put a lot of that to very, very good use in exploring your own capabilities, but exploring sort of ways to help others and ways to sort of be to play your part in kind of society, I guess. Is there any kind of cornerstone moments from your time as a sportsman, as a rower, which have lent itself more than anything else to your time after rowing?
Gosh, that's a great question, Andy. And I think, I think as I'm looking at you now, the most pivotal moments were when I was in a boat with you. No, not because of you, but but and one of the biggest things that I've noticed, stepping away from a sport where I was part of a community, every day, 7 days a week, we were down at that lake in the boat together, in the gym, on the rowing machine together, and I was part of something far greater than myself. When you isolate yourself, which I did after that sport, not because I wanted to be isolated, just because I now wasn't a part of a big team, I became relatively lonely without realizing it. And also, so what has come back round now is I've realized the value of people and having a team, having people around me, and needing that to achieve anything that I want to achieve. And whether that is just communicating with your mate once or twice a day, or once a week or whatever, or working closely with someone, that community is super important. And so that's what I'm trying to build up back for myself now, so that I can live a happy and fulfilling life. There's one particular story that I'll just brush over very quickly with you. And it was our 2012 crew, London 2012 crew. And we actually, I think, my perception of it was we started that year going into to race the Olympics. We were selected as the Coxless Four, and I think we started that year off as 2 islands in a 4-man boat. There was myself and Tom, who'd rowed together before, and we thought about rowing alike. And you and Pete, who'd had an incredibly successful run of things together in a pair, and you were, and we were 2 sort of not opposing pairs, but we were 2 kind of individuals in a boat of 4. And it took us a whole season to go through racing and eventually be beaten in the last race before the Olympics, for us, I think, to realize how to mold each other together, how to come together as a unit, as a crew. And essentially, from my memory and my perception of it, it came down to a conversation, a true and honest conversation up in that mountain hut in Austria on that training camp. And I think that one conversation changed everything, who we were as a unit, as a crew. And I think that without that conversation, potentially, we probably wouldn't have crossed the line first in that Olympic Games. And so that really sort of, I think about that daily, and that really makes me think about who I speak to daily and who is around me and who I need around me. So yeah, there's just a thought there.
No, I completely agree. It was a fascinating time, and I never really realized the magnitude of what we were walking into with London Olympic Games. Like, obviously there's a lot of buzz around the Home Olympics, but it wasn't until we sat on the start line. And I know it's something that Pete reflects on time and time again, but when they were doing the roll call, and in the final, and then it got to and GB lane 6, and then like 2 seconds later, you just heard this roar from 2 kilometers away of, was it 30,000 people at the finish line?
Yeah. And
I looked across, and looking at the Aussie boat with Drew Ginn sitting in there, and Drew Ginn is the equivalent of Steve Redgrave for the Aussies. He is their top dog, and that was his last race. It was his kind of Redgrave Sydney moment, and I reflect on that because it just, for me, in hindsight, it blows my mind that process of that year, where we started off, like you say, those basically, 2 crews in 1 crew, and how we went through some really tough times, some really good times. I mean, it's fair to say we also broke the world record that year. We got the world's best time. We did some amazing stuff in that boat, but the pinnacle was sitting at the start line, feeling like we did, ready to take on the world's best rowers, and then to have the race that we did, and then finish in front of the crowd at the home Olympics.
The picture you're painting there is perhaps something that people don't recognize, and I think that this happens in all sorts of areas of life. You have these assumptions about what things are going to be like, what things are like, and then very rarely as you imagine, as either as big, as scary as you imagine, or as exciting as you might imagine, or nerve-wracking as you might imagine. That situation there, I had no idea really that the start line of the Olympic Games was going to be deathly silent. It was eerily quiet down there. You could hear your opposition. Drew Ginn, you talk about, he was one of my rowing heroes. Don't tell Steve. Steve was as well, but he was one of my rowing heroes. And he was sitting in that boat just there, and you can almost hear him breathing next to you. There's no crowd down there. There's just the odd umpire or official or whatever wandering around. There's nothing. And then the roll call comes, as you described so well, and silent, silent, silent. Lane 4, silent. Lane 5, Great Britain. And we were lane 6, were we? I don't know, whatever. The crowd, the noise came up from 2. And I remember you turned round to us and said, "That's for us, boys." And I tell you what, I'd been sitting in that boat until that moment thinking, I could just jump out of here now, just swim to the edge there, disappear into the woods over there. No one would notice. Oh, maybe I should do that. And then you turned around and said that to us. And I was like, I'm in the right place here. Andy's up for it. Tom's up for it. There's nowhere else in the world I want to be. It's a good moment.
That was a good moment. I'm going to have to go back and watch it now. Back then, we were really good.
Sorry, could I just jump in? Because I wanted to ask a question, because literally, you were talking about the build up to the Olympic Games, and I find it so interesting that you said you had a race before the Olympic Games which you lost, and it just made you realize what you had to do to actually come into the Olympic Games. So this is 2 questions for you, really and truly, is that when you had that conversation in, did you say it was Austria?
Yeah.
How were you feeling? That was it, do you know what, let's just be honest with each other, let's just lay it all out, or was it just, you know what, this is what we have to do, or is it a mixture of everything combined?
That's a great question. So from my perspective, our job was to win the gold medal. We were in an environment where anything but gold wasn't going to be good enough. And also, Andy, Pete, and Tom, who were my crewmates at the time, they'd won gold in Beijing before. The Coxers forward won gold in Athens before that, in Sydney before that. We were going for kind of something that's expected of us in that boat. And then what's more, our coach, Jürgen Grobler, he had only ever won gold. I'm sure that's the case. And he'd won like a million. He'd been to like, he was old. He's old. He's been to like a million Olympics. I don't know. As he's only ever won gold. And I remember that year being selected in that boat with those 3 other guys, thinking, if we muck this up, it's going to be on me, because they've won it before. It's on me. So I felt the nerves in that year. And then you mentioned the race that we didn't win 2 months before the Olympics. We were beaten by Australia, who came over. And that was a pivotal moment. And it was a great catch there. You picked up on that, because that, to me, that pushed us against the wall. That put our backs against the wall and showed us, I think in our hearts, we knew we weren't really reaching our potential, really maximizing on what we were capable of. But we hadn't really been able to find it or find a way out of it, and getting beaten put our backs against the wall and forced us to do something. So when we got to that meeting, it was only a couple of days after that race, we sat down. We had nowhere else to go. We could only pour our hearts out in that meeting, and we could only be totally honest with each other. And it was a kind of a life-changing experience for me, I think, because it showed me the value of or the difference between thinking you're being honest and thinking you're working as a team and thinking you're working like that, and the value of truly being honest, truly knowing that everyone knows what you're doing and why you're doing it, and truly being able to say what you need to say to each other. I remember there were some awkward or some difficult things to voice in that moment, but we all understood why each of us were saying them, because if we didn't, we weren't going to win. So it was wonderfully, it was a revelation, really. And I remember the next day we got down on the water and the boat felt better. The next day, Jürgen was in the boat alongside us, or on the bank alongside us, taking times, and like, we haven't got that all year. And we weren't doing anything differently, sort of physically. We weren't different people physically. It was just through that understanding, that communication together. So, yeah.
I mean, that's brilliant. When I heard that, I said, do you know, I need to get down to the nitty gritty of it, because it's so interesting how you said that people have that perception of they being honest with each other instead of actually being honest, showing their real emotion of, do you know what, this is what's happening. How do we get to that solution? So yeah, I just wanted to know that. I've also got another question, but I want to go back to Andy because I know it's you're interviewing.
No, mate. No, you go for it. Go on.
The question for me, obviously, because I in the time the 2012 Olympics was so hyped. I mean, when London got the Olympic Games, I can't remember. I think it was in 2004 where we found out, or
2005.
2005. There we go. Year off, but it, especially when I was in school, it was so hyped up. Schools getting tickets to see different sports in the Olympics. But I just want to know how you felt before the Olympics, like, because especially it's in our home country, in Great Britain, London. How did you feel going up to the Olympic Games?
So my run into forgive me, I'll just go back to my start in the sport, because I think it's related. I started rowing when I was about, I think, turning 17, 16, 17. And it was completely by chance. My local rowing club in Evesham in Worcestershire, that's near Birmingham. And my school was just my local school. It didn't have a rowing thing, but there was a river down the road and a local rowing club on the river. But a mate of mine went down to Evesham Rowing Club on a taster course. I don't know where he'd seen it, maybe in the paper or something, but they were just running a weekend course down there. And my mate, he was also called Alex, which is a bit confusing, but he went down and gave it a go. And he came back to school and said, Alex, you should come down with me after school. You love it. You get out on the water. It's fun. And rowing, you'd be good at rowing. And I had zero interest in it. I'd never watched it on TV. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know who Steve Redgrave was. And to be completely honest with you, sport wasn't my thing. It's not really my thing. I'm not that sporty. It's not my interest. And so I palmed him off for months and months. And eventually, just to shut him up, because he kept saying, "Oh, come down." Eventually, just to shut him up, I went down after school with him. And from the moment I put a boat on the water, I stepped in it and flipped out the other side into stinking Avon river water, I knew it was going to be something that I wanted to throw myself into, pun, like get into, because it wasn't a sport. It wasn't like a normal sport for me. It wasn't about, it was a complex mix of activities. And actually, I'm sure I've had conversations with Andy about this. I think we have a vaguely similar perception of rowing, but I used to get the mickey taken out of me for saying it's not a sport, it's an art. But I do believe that, because it's about painting a picture. And what really drew me into the sport was, it's not about being as big and strong and fast as possible from A to B. Of course, that's an element of it, but it's about how you communicate with your teammates. It's about how you communicate with the boat you're in, and the water, and the rowing machine even, and your body, and the challenge of pushing when you need to push, and holding back when you need to hold back. And also you've got a coach on the bank shouting 1,001 instructions at you because you're rubbish at that stage, and you've got a million things to change, and they bombard you with stuff. But there's someone over there you're racing against and trying to beat, and then your body saying stop, stop, stop. And plus rowing, you go backwards, you can't even see where you're going. So there's all this complex stuff going on, and you have to find a way to filter out what you need to filter out, to understand what you need to understand. And it's just complicated, but amazing. And you're not just learning about sport or rowing, you're learning about yourself and other people. So much involved to it. So that is what drew me in. Now, I didn't have, coming back round to your question, I'm sorry, I've just gone off on one, but coming back, back around to your question, the Olympics didn't mean much, if anything, to me for many years after that. And I knew I wanted to get better. I knew I wanted to pursue the sport and be good at it. But the Olympics was so far in the horizon, so far off, it didn't resonate at all. And then eventually, I kept mucking things up, basically. And I got better, and I had a lot of support from, actually, my history teacher from my school became a rowing coach. So we worked together, and we then sort of got selected in the British rowing team eventually, as a sort of under 23 rower. But I'd muck up these races and have disaster after disaster, all of these problems. Eventually, I went to Beijing in 2008, the Olympics, as a reserve. And that was the first time where things fell into place. Before that, of course, I'd been aiming to go to develop the understanding of what the Olympics was, but it was only in Beijing that I understand what it really meant and what it was all about, and how I was going to turn my sort of disastrous rowing career so far into a successful career. And that's where I watched Andy, Pete and Tom and Steve win their gold in Beijing. I was on the sidelines as a reserve watching them. And I was like, how do I get one of them out of the boat and get in that boat? That's what I did.
Amazing. I love this conversation, obviously, because I can relate to some of it so clearly. I love what you just said about it's not a sport, it's an art. Without trying to make it sound grandiose and this sort of big thing, the concept of actually then what is a sport and what is an art, you've struck the nail on the head in terms of, you know, rowing is about communication. It's about working together, and it's how you make other people feel. That's what art does, right? You create something, and it influences people's emotions and people's perceptions. It can be challenging, it could be nurturing. And I think that's definitely what we're trying to do at LYR, and trying to take the best bits of the sport and put it in that frame. And I think when I see it at its absolute best, that's what we do. And that's what the best rowers do from the start. So I just absolutely love that thought, and that's going to stay with me for a long time. One, I mean, I guess you probably already answered it. But, you know, from from the moment you weren't a rower to the moment you kind of were, then the journey you've been on and the hindsight and everything else that's happened, and in an impossible situation where you can't know what the answer is, but the option of what life could have been, had you actually never succumbed to your mate's request to go rowing, had you never been a rower, are you in ever way, do you ever think about, actually, I should have just not tried it, because actually what I could have done, do you see what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, I see what you mean. And my natural character is to joke, right? To say a joke right now and say, oh, I wish I'd never started rowing. But that is, I'm not going to do that. Well, I've just done it, but I'm not going to do that because it's the wrong time and place to do that. And also, it's just not true. I can't overstate it enough that rowing changed my life, and I can't overstate enough how I now live my life, or try to live my life, based on the skills, the tools, whatever you want to call it, that I learned from being a part of that world. And I again, it's easy to say, having lived it, but what was I going to say there? I wouldn't be who I am now if I hadn't been involved in rowing. And so what I was going to say was, it doesn't matter that I ended up being lucky enough to be in boats with you and going to the Olympics and winning Olympic medals. That was just the path that I ended up taking. That is irrelevant to the things that I learned from the sport. And so when we talk about communication, when we talk about leadership, when we talk about resilience, all these words that's very easy to throw around, were all things that I needed to put into practice or test out or learn. And I didn't have any of them before, or I had all of them to some degree before I started rowing. But they were grown, they were nurtured throughout the arts that we talk about, the sport, the art. It doesn't even matter what you call it. It's a lifestyle. It's a thing. It's an activity, and they were all those sort of skills that I'm hyper aware now when I don't live by the rules that I learned from sport. And I catch myself and go, well, hang on a minute, this isn't going to take me in the right direction here. When I feel like something isn't going right. So I've just started a business, it's a coaching business, one-to-one with individuals. And I mean, I request to speak to someone and someone doesn't want to speak, or something I do doesn't hit home or doesn't work out. Then I think, oh, what am I doing? Oh, I should quit. Well, actually, no, I didn't do that in rowing, and it got me to where I want to. So it might take me a year longer, or 5 minutes longer, or a month longer, but I know I can get through, and that's resilience. And I've learned that resilience, so I have to trust myself. This is one stupid little example, but
no, brilliant.
Yeah,
that's, and that's really good to hear, because it means my life wasn't completely wasted. But so look, I know you as one of the funniest guys in the team, and we've been very serious, but I'm going to ask you one more serious question, and then I want you to give us like a couple of funny stories from rowing, because I just remember from my time, we seem to be laughing a lot, and you're a great storyteller, so I'm definitely going to ask you to give us some of those. But one last serious question. I know you as a family guy. You've talked a bit about the communication, about the more delicate sides of the sport, the art of it, the connection with people, with friends, with colleagues, with crewmates, and the importance. And that's, I think, that's the true side of the sport. That's technique actually doesn't really matter. Physicality is important, but, actually how people connect. When you've got 3 young kids, you've got an amazing partner. Just tell us a little bit about that sacrifice, and how hard it was to balance being, you know, one of the best rowers in the world, one of the most experienced, one who was leaned on heavily by crewmates. You know, you led that four in Rio, but you were balancing a lot. Just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is one of the things I'm most interested in now as well. And looking back, reflecting on the times you've just mentioned there. How do we perform in our lives when we have lots going on? And that's the case whether you're a 16 year or 14, a child, like any age, a young person, any age, to an adult. We are bombarded, never more so than in these days right now. And so how do we perform and do the jobs we want to do and succeed in what we want to do, while also living the lives we want to live and performing in our other lives as well? How do we find that balance? And it's and so in my case, I had just turned a corner in this. I just won my first race in 2009. Really, it was the first World Championship win, and that year we found out that my partner was pregnant with our first child. Just to be, throw it out there. And I thought that this was going to be the end for a while. I thought this was going to be the end of my rowing career, because you can't be a father and be successful in sport. You can't achieve both. So I'm going to have to walk away from rowing, or I'll be chucked out of rowing, because we're in this high performance environment where the tiniest second makes a big difference to what you do, whether you get selected, whether you win or not. So I was pretty concerned about that. It got to 6 months of pregnancy. We couldn't hide it any longer, and I had to flag it up to our coach, Jürgen. I called a meeting with him, and I said, sat down with him and said, Jürgen, I've got something to tell you. And he said, what? I'm busy, Alex. Oh, he's German. So he's German. There's a deep German accent. I'm busy. And I said, Jürgen, and I sort of mumbled something out. Oh God, my heart was through my chest. I thought this would be my last day at rowing. And I said, Jürgen, I'm going to be a dad. And in that moment, his eyes glinted. I could see sort of like wet eyes. He leaned over the table, gave me a smack on the shoulder and said, Alex, that is fantastic news. I'm so happy for you. And that took me back right there. That knocked me for six, really. I was not expecting that reaction. So the long and short of it is I had support from my coach. What I didn't see and what I didn't notice and what I didn't know then was that he saw that what having a child was for me was giving me balance. It was giving me something else to focus on in life. And we can all do this. We can all do hobbies, do activities, support our friends and family, and still perform in whatever we want to do, whether that's schoolwork, college, university, our jobs. We can all achieve both if we accept and understand the balance that we have to create to be happy. I became a better rower when I had a family. I became a better rower when I had 1, 2, 3 children. I was best in my last year when I had 3 children. Ended up missing 2 of their births. But that was a bit of a sacrifice, a bit of a few difficult situations, a few difficult conversations back at home. It was all part of it. So essentially what I'm saying is that it was a challenge. There were difficult times, but it made all the difference, learning to understand that we can do everything that we want to do, and we have to do everything we want to do, because we have to be happy, content people to achieve what we want to achieve. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely nailed it. Yeah, I mean, look, you're if you look at the perfect rower in the dictionary, you'll find a picture of Alex Gregory, and it's for everything you're saying. That is the reason why. Brilliant. Look, right. So before you have a chance to act modest and bat that back, I want you to give us your favourite memory from rowing, the one that brings a tear to your eye with laughter every time.
I can't say that. I can't say that out loud.
Not that one. Oh, no, not that one. The other one.
The other one.
Yeah,
the other one. Gosh. I mean, come on. There's so much. We spent so much time. I haven't thought of one, but I think training camps were always amazing times. And when I think of fun you can have, we were so lucky to get to go on those training camps. Actually, just one serious point. Never mind. I think there was one funny time I remember. So Will Satch was one of our crewmates, one of our teammates, and we were in Portugal once. And there were these amazing rooms with big sliding glass doors, and you just walked out of your room, and then we walked down to the gym or the lake. But at the end of the day, we'd wash our kit in the shower. You get through a lot of kit, 3 training sessions a day, drenched in sweat in Portugal. You rinse out your kit and then hang it outside your room to dry. My room, I was sharing with Mohammed Sabihi at that time. And Will was in the room next door, and we could see Will's kit outside drying. So every now and again throughout the afternoon, we'd come out with a full water bottle and drench his kit in water. And every now and again, we'd come out and watch Will go over to his kit, look at his kit, and it was like just as wet as it was, in fact, wetter than it was before. He'd look confused, put it back down, let it dry a bit, go out, see it was a little bit drier, then a little bit later we'd have done that again, and his kit was wetter. This went on, no joke, for days. The same piece of kit was wet for days, and Will couldn't understand it for days. But I mean, that's just a stupid little thing, but it was what sort of got us through those difficult times. And if you can have fun with what you do, if you can enjoy your time, the difficult times the inevitable difficult times won't seem so bad. And if you can enjoy your time and have fun with the people around you, then you're onto a winner. And whether you win or last in a race, whether you succeed or don't succeed, at least you will have enjoyed the journey along the way. And I think that's what we did in rowing.
Well, that's a perfect moment not to end it, because I'm going to open the floor up to everyone else here to ask you any questions. But our boss Matt Rostron, who's on this call now, his phrase when I first started, may have waned a little bit now, was, if we're having the most fun, then we're doing our job properly, because our job is to inspire. And if our coaches are having fun, if we're all having fun, then we're doing the right thing. And that's kind of where Race The Thames came from. It's kind of that idea of how can we have a lot of fun, and everyone on this call, the whole charity, who leans in hard for this event. And it is hard. We've got David, one of our colleagues, our COO. They've just had their 4th kid a week ago. He's got COVID. His son's got COVID. And he was on an email this morning helping me out with something. So, everyone is leaning in hard, but we're all having the most fun. And that message, you're absolutely right. Whether you're, going for an Olympic gold at a first-time Olympics, whether you're going for trials, whether you're just rowing, whether you're whatever walk of life, fun. Oh, hey, I'm so pleased you're able to join us today. Thank you.
Andy, you've just made me remember this, and I just feel like I have to say it. And it's just something that I picked up on. When you're in an environment, I think it was a perfect example there, what you said about David with sort of struggling at home, and yet still lending a hand to his team, the people that he works with, the people that he wants to help. A big turning point in my rowing career was going from feeling like an individual, feeling like someone I had to do things on my own, or I was supposed to do things on my own. I'm a male in this sport. You're supposed to know what you do. You're supposed to know what to do. You're supposed to be able to cope. And I just couldn't, and it wasn't working for me. It was only when I started to realize that if I helped you, Andy, if I made it easier for you, or tried to make it easier for you, if I gave you a slap on the back one morning when you were looking a bit tired or something, then you would do the same for me when I needed it. And just a word here or there, or a little hug, or a punch on the arm or something, can change someone's day. And that's only ever going to pay you back in spades eventually when you need it back. And so if everyone did that, then you create this little culture between the two of you, and then that spreads and people see that happening and they start to do it. And I think that is what we started to do in our teams leading up to London, and then from London to Rio. We were all in this amazing environment together, and we came home pretty as a successful team where I think we all enjoyed the process. Anyway, another ramble. Sorry, carry on.
Right. Does anyone have any questions? If not, yes, please.
Yeah, cool. Great question, and quite difficult to answer because I think there's I have a lot of thoughts about that sort of thing. So when I think about one of our rowing crews, a rowing crew, I see it like there was no leader in the crew. We all had our role. Andy, so in the boat, I was with Andy. He was the stroke guy. He was one of the most experienced rowers out there in the field in any race we ever did. So I would look to him for that experience. And then Pete was the caller in the boat. He was very just meticulous with his words. He made everything sound easy and clear. And we all had a role in the boat. So yet we were all leaders in our own right because we were leading that role. And when I think about the best crews that I was a part of, it goes back to what I was trying to say a minute ago. When I started to think about how to make it easy for Andy, Pete, Tom, Mo, whoever I was rowing with, if I took my focus onto them, okay, maybe it's something physical. Maybe I have to sit slightly different to make Mo feel really comfortable. Then Mo could then feel comfortable, get all his power out. I was never ever going to be as powerful as Mo. That was his strength. That was his. That was one of the many things that he really brought to the boat. So if I can make it easy for him to get his strength out, then I'm going to be better off. And what's more, when I'm focusing on making it easy for my crewmates, then it's taking the pressure off myself as well. And I know I'm going to perform because I'm always working hard. I'm always trying, but I'm not worrying about what I'm doing in my little pocket. I'm thinking about what these guys are doing. And I found personally, I felt more comfortable in the big situations. I felt less nervous when I was concentrating on everyone else. I felt more a part of the team. I felt like my teammates knew that they could rely on me as well. And it feels like for me that was my form of leadership. It wasn't about standing up, and I think Andy would say maybe I spoke less than many people, or I didn't really talk much in boats. But I think my form of leadership was just to try and make it easy for everyone else. Other people have different roles and treat leadership in different ways. And then very quickly going back to Jürgen, because he was essentially our leader in the whole environment. Jürgen was an amazing coach. Just type in his name, look at his record. He was an extraordinary human, and I'm very proud to call him a friend now, I suppose. But I wouldn't have ever called him a friend when he was a coach. He was scary as hell. But as a coach, his way of coaching, and my sort of umbrella view of his way of coaching, was one of absolute simplicity. So he was very different to any of the other coaches that I'd worked with over the time. I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the chat. All rowers or anyone, we all, in whatever field we're in, we all have 1,000 things we should be better at. We could be doing better. And when a coach is on the bank watching a rower out there, they can suddenly see, oh, he should be sitting like that, doing that, or she should be moving like that or doing this. And a lot of coaches say what they see. Move your hands quicker, push your legs faster, don't lean back so much. And in 2 hours, you can have 1,000 instructions and change all of them for 5 seconds and come off the water no different to how you were before. What Jürgen would do we'd be out on the water for 2 hours and he'd say 5 words. In total, 5 words. Guys, your legs are too, the stern is dipping, or something about the boat, like a technical thing about the boat. And Andy would turn around and go, what the hell's he talking about? Who's doing it? Is it me? Is it you, Alex? It's you, isn't it? And whatever. He wouldn't really do that. But we'd have a discussion within the boat together. We'd try and figure out who's causing the stern to dip. Jürgen wouldn't help us, wouldn't say anything more. And then pretty much for the next 2 weeks, we'd go out on the water and Jürgen would be alongside us and he wouldn't say anything. And then lo and behold, 2 weeks later, out of the blue, he'll shout across the lake, guys, the stern is better. And what he's done is he's just planted a seed. And this for me is his form of coaching, his form of leadership. He plants seeds for us to go and make the change, to figure it out together. So come the start line of the Olympic Games, that thing about the stern dipping, we will have solved. It's a robust change that we've figured out and understood ourselves. What a lot of the other coaches that I worked under, and they were really good coaches, but they would tell us 1,001 things. Come the start line of the Olympics, the stern might be a little bit better, but so might my legs, but I've lost something on here, and then I'm just, I don't know what I'm doing. No one's ever going to be perfect. Jürgen knew that. Jürgen accepted that. But he can he can lead us to work on one thing at a time, to improve on one small thing at a time. And we're never going to be perfect come the start line of the Olympics, but we'll be better than when we were 6 months before or whatever. So yeah, he really trusted us. He really trusted us to make the changes that he planted the seeds for. And that for me is something that I want to take in my coaching as well, when I work with individuals and helping them to put their lives in the way, to form their lives in the way they want to form, one thing at a time. We can't do everything all at once. It's a long, slow process, but patience is a virtue.
Yeah. Brilliant. Look, Alex, thank you so much for your time. That's been the best 45 minutes for about 5 years since I was last around you. Look, so many thoughts, considerations, lessons, ideas, planting seeds, all of that. It's fantastic. And I'm sure I say it for everybody, but thank you so much for your time. I don't know if you saw, but Dan, one of our coaches, was following a session down at the docks. You would have seen just a random guy with a boat or a quad, an 8 that was out on the water. That was a brand new 8 that Mossbourne have just bought with OIR for their kids there. And that was fundraised from some of money from last year's Race the Thames, going into action, getting kids on the water down in East London. So, look, we've had the most amazing few days here at Race the Thames. We now go from one inspiration to another, and it's a great privilege to introduce a whole raft of people. And I'm not going to say you all because I'm probably going to do the hospital part and hand over to Sam. But before I do, a personal welcome to Judith. Judith, we've known each other for a long time. Thank you for everything you're doing for us at LYR, for Race the Thames. energy, your drive, and bringing this next group together. Yeah, over to Sam.
Right. Hello, Judith.
Morning. I think this. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. We can definitely hear
you. So just thanks for that check, because normally you've seen me early in the morning on the rowing machine. So this is probably the first time you've seen me in anything decent.
Yeah. But as you said that, I've been to 2 of your sessions on Wednesday mornings. So when you told me, and I looked at the time, I was like, oh wow. So like, you lot are committed, but it's brilliant what you guys do. So could you just tell me a little bit about Zoom Ergos and what you guys do?
Okay, so basically Zoom Ergos was set up by somebody else while I was focusing on somebody else during lockdown to help connect lots of people that were really missing their rowing clubs. And so much of that last conversation, Andy, you had with Alex, so much has resonated about connecting and supporting each other and just training together and not feeling isolated. And so that's what was formed. I only discovered it after I'd finished umpiring last year's women's boat race at Ely and all of that isolation and the preparation for that. And I came out of that thinking, I need to get fit. How do I do this when the club's still locked? And it was really through Girl on the River podcast with one of the many inspirational people that she's interviewed. I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. So Zoom Ergos is about connecting people who just want to train together and want to connect, and some distraction perhaps from training. And I think what's been wonderful is that it has evolved, and I now have a regular Wednesday morning session. Anybody is able to join, and we can come on to that a little bit more later if we have time, I guess.
Yeah. No, as you said, with the Wednesday sessions, I've actually gone in, and I was in my mind before I joined your session. I was like, oh, how are we going to do this? Do they do it in silent? Do they start rowing? And one thing I forgot her name when Di, yes.
Di Billy, ex-Rock the Boat. She's been our Cox navigator. Encyclopedic history. We've had history lessons. We've had a bit of technical lessons. We've had cultural tours in our minds. And I think it sort of that nicely leads, because frankly speaking, a year ago, I could not get on the rowing machine. It had far too many bad memories for me. And I'm sure a lot of high-level athletes will relate. They want to do something completely different. And yet I loved it. I loved the rowing. And so for me, it was about creating a different image in my mind and remembering all those wonderful places I've umpired, stood on the bank, I've rowed. And so I really had to dig into my own memory bank to create that in my mind. And actually, you can do that so far on your own. And it was literally through a coffee chat with Di. I said, do you remember that time on a riverbank? And I said, can we just describe this? And it was really through that connection. It's just evolved, frankly, through our memory. And then, of course, we know within the country, we've got so many wonderful rivers we all row on, some of which I've been to, most of which I've not. And it's like, it's just blossomed from there, really, Samuel. So we've done an epic, we're actually halfway through an epic 5-part series along the Thames. We are rowing upstream, unlike Race the Thames downriver. It has done a little bit of mental gymnastics with our heads, but next Wednesday we are rowing, same time, same slot, 7:30 to 8:15, from Teddington Lock up to Windsor Castle. Going to give a virtual nod at the Queen, staying overnight with Dorney, Hannah Vines, the coach at Dorney. And then the last of our 5-part series, I think it's the 9th of Feb, Wednesday, the 9th of Feb, we'll be going from there all the way up, past Henley, past some other people. So, yeah, does that put into context? It's a bit crazy. But along the journey, I've met so many people, and it was literally as a result of just hearing about this and saying to others on that Wednesday morning session, anybody want to do this? and like, you know, full women's crew in like a weekend. Couldn't believe it.
No, it's brilliant. As I said before, like I've been and Di just narrating when you guys are doing your sessions and going past the landmarks that you're going. I'm thinking, wow, this is actually brilliant. This is something that can interest and actually get people together, because you've got so many people that are from all over the country that are joining in. See how it goes.
Well, and you know what, London Youth Rowing, Race the Thames, you've got the same, and we have become addicted. Every morning and every evening I've been looking at those little blobs on that map. Okay. And I know a little bit, being an engineer, I know a little bit about what's behind all that. So hats off to the data people behind all of this. And actually I can't control my crew anymore. They keep putting the data in. We're probably going to over the channel to Paris, and then going off to see one of our crew members at Christchurch. So great data management. It's a great way for us to support the other crews. I've seen there's 4 women's 8s going, 1 boxing girls from, I mean, actually we are all connected in this, aren't we? It's all the same. It's all the same. So, you know, you've done the same in a different way. And just to pick up, sorry, I will stop talking a minute, but Samuel, we discovered that one of our crew was born where you're now living, okay? And we found out that we rode past where Hannah, our coach, Hannah Vines, was born. So actually just in this rowing, you learn about each other. And, you know, I guess it's our version. This week has been our version of Andy and Alex's boot camp, you know, training camp. So there we go. And Hannah, maybe we should just introduce you now as because what she mentioned was she recognized you. She recognized something. Yep. Didn't you, Hannah?
Yeah, I mean, when we did the CPD session a couple of weeks ago, I was incredibly touched and surprised to find Simone is now one of the LYR team, who was one of the young people I taught to row at Brampton during sort of curriculum PE. And I think you just never realise the impact you've had, the seed you might plant, and this week will do the same, I hope, for hundreds of people. So it was really wonderful to see that. And I know I came off that call going, I can't believe that. That's what it's about. That is what it is about, because I didn't know. I had absolutely no idea. And I know that some of my alumni kids from Brampton have helped out at N-Jerk and stuff like that, but I didn't realise that Simone was now working for you and coaching, which for me was just brilliant.
Fantastic. And actually, if I can continue with the metaphors and the art and the poetry, Andy, that you planted last time, talk about seed. We'll go to little drops of pebbles in the water, and we've made lots of puddles. I just want to introduce Bernie Hollywood, who is showing us, I don't know whether we can pin him on the chat, but the Boat of Hope, you know, it's not our name really, it's our crew name, but actually it's this. Bernie Hollywood is showing us now live the Boat of Hope. It's his physical solo Atlantic rowboat. And I don't know if Bernie, you want to come off mute and just, is that okay, Samuel, if we just get Bernie to talk about the real Boat of Hope and his amazing challenge. And I know some Atlantic rowers have just finished. So this is Bernie, who has inspired us all. Bernie, hello, Bernie, where are you?
I'm on the banks of the River Dee. So I've just finished a 4.5 hour session on the river this morning. So
fantastic. Oh, this is great. This is great. So just show us your boat and maybe tell us about it.
Sure. It's an ocean-going boat, and it's built by an amazing company called Rannoch Adventure. They're a British company based in Essex. Yeah, and you'll all be familiar with the rowing seat and effectively sort of how it's all set out here. It's built specifically for ocean going, obviously, adventures. She's approximately 21 foot long. She weighs 3/4 of a ton, and she's completely equipped to get across the Atlantic in any weather. If she capsizes, which is quite likely she will do in the swells or some storms, she'll actually self-right as well. because you have a forward cabin here, and you have an aft cabin here, and they act as two watertight compartments that to keep the air in airtight. So when she goes over, very much like a lifeboat, she actually rewrites herself.
So Bernie, is everything tied on?
Well, yes. You can see the spare oars are tied on. I have 2 sets of oars. I'll be tied on. So I'll be tethered to the boat at all times. So I'll be tethered to this line here. So if she does capsize, or I do sort of get tossed overboard, I'll always be attached to the boat at all times.
Fantastic. And being an engineer, I'm fascinated by all your tech that you've got in there. You've got your own power station. Yeah,
I got my own power station. It's solar powered. So you have a solar panel at the stern, and you have a solar panel on the forward cabin here. And that charges 2 lithium batteries, which basically control all of the electronics on board. So those batteries are kept in a watertight hatch here. And they should be there. You might be able to see them.
Batteries. So you are your complete asset manager as well. You're absolutely, you're everything.
Absolutely, I've got to manage everything. And fantastic. I'd say a water desalination unit there as well for you. So.
Oh, and I listened to there was one tweet from somebody that worked all through the problem solving because their water desalination unit wasn't working, and they actually jumped out and looked at the inlet. It was the tiny little squid.
It was a squid in the inlet valve. Yeah, so
amazing.
Sometimes the most simplest solutions solve the issue, don't they?
Okay, absolutely. And I just want to put a little plug for, you've got an amazing team around you. And before we go on to Samaritans and love rowing, but before we go on to that, I just want to put a plug to anybody with children, anybody who's a parent or got sisters or grandchildren. So a wonderful colleague of Bernie's has written this lovely book for children about the adventure. Okay, so I wasn't going to show this, but your conversation with Alex gave me the courage to share this. Amazing. They've also done a sea shanty, and that's available on Amazon. And I'll have to talk to Andy, but if we want to, we can have a colouring in competition. Awesome craft, but Andy doesn't know about that, so sorry about that, Andy.
That's brilliant.
But the point is, I think the point for me is actually it is about the whole person. It isn't about the performance, is it? It's about the families and engaging with people. And the point of this book really captivates the point of a lot of the message of this boat, and that is we all go through ups and downs, we all go through challenges. We're not impervious to that, but we quite often bottle it in. And the earliest we can get trained up to talk about these in a normal way, the better for everybody. And so if we start young, that's fantastic. As opposed to seeing it, I'm not feeling very well today, I'm down. So anyway, a plug for the book. And all of the royalties of that will go to Love Rowing and the Samaritans between them. So and more about that, look at the Boat of Hope website. So
thank you.
I guess that's a perfect segue into actually what I wanted to know first, as this is a family, and it's been a pleasure to meet the family, especially I know all the team. Just a quick rundown of how you found Race the Thames this week.
Oh, well, we started thinking, well, actually 3 weeks ago, we started thinking, shall we actually do it? Should I put a mixed crew in? And I think, I put a mixed crew in thinking, okay, we'll get a crew. In fact, it was before Christmas. I spoke to Andy and said, can we do this? And then we thought, well, okay, can we raise £400? Not sure about that, but we thought we'll give it a go. And actually that encouragement to just enter, and then we sort of put it out there. So I think so much of what you just spoke about with Andy, with Alex, is like actually just inviting a fellow rower having a go, having courage just to try and do something, and the support that you guys have given us to get to the start line, first off. I think then during the week, we had this, I got it in my head, 6K a day for fixing. I don't do the ergo continuously every day. I just don't do that. Some people on the team do. So I thought, can I actually do that 6K a day? Do I have a rest day? So I was really reflecting on actually what I could do. And then I found through the whole team, gosh, there were some people doing crazy things. And through asking about people, are you up for this? I learned so much about different people. I mean, just incredible. And maybe Sophie can explain a little bit more about her experience, but we've never met in real life. We've only ever met on Zoom ergos. We've all connected through WhatsApp. We've all been, as I say, addicted to the map, and encouraging each other, like, okay, I've done 5K, or I've just done 2 hours. It's not very much, but I hope it's okay. He said, it's fine, because one's a doctor, one's a physio, 2's professional sports people, 3 are Paralympic and adaptive classifications. We're all different, and yet this has really united us. That fundamentally, it's really united us, and so it's sort of helped us get to know each other. It's really helped us connect. It's having a focus, and we've exceeded our expectations, and I think we now, I think after this conversation, we really need to up our goal from £400 is now £1,750. I think we need to go 2K, really, Andy. Don't we? Given that. So, I mean, the time's too short for that. But Sophie is one of our rowers, one of our 3 adaptive rowers, and they're all different classifications. One is blind, so I've been entering her data, and I think what I've really learned, and Sophie can say more, is I've learned a lot about how we need to be more inclusive by connecting with those people that we want to include. So Sophie, I should ask, how have you found it?
Well,
Sophie.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, well, I kind of was a bit concerned that I wasn't going to be much use, to be honest. But the further the week's gone on, the more I'm just like, now I need to try and get a decent amount of mileage in. I mean, I can't say that I've really trained that much since when we went into lockdown the first time and I hadn't got anything to do. It's definitely given me a focus, but I had to work around some limitations in regards to the fact that I can't use my legs, and obviously pain and stuff. I mean, I won't talk. I'll worry about what my surgeon has to say after, when I see him next week. I'm sure I'll get into trouble, but you know, just to be able to do it with a group of people, because a lot of my training is predominantly on my own, because there isn't any adaptive athletes near me. So it's nice to be able to connect with people, even if they haven't necessarily got the same abilities as me, although I am quite jealous of you being able to use your legs most of the time.
And I should say to Sophie, we met back in 2011 when I can't remember why, but I was involved in Henley Women's Regatta on the on-water team. And I said, look, you know, we've got these straight finals for elite women's eights. What about the adaptive side of things? Why can't we put a race on for that? And so, you know, I guess I learned through that process of talking with Sophie and the Guildford team of saying, okay, what do we need to do to make that possible? And we did. And Sophie has won Henley Women's Regatta Adaptive Trophy in the first 2 years we put it on. It's now been won. It's now called the Grosvenor Trophy. It's not every year, and obviously the last few years is difficult. But you know, it's a catch-22 position. Is like events will put on races for adaptive people if they're there, and the adaptive people will race and be attractive if events go on or things are for them. So I think it's about making that first step, and I think Hannah mentioned that first step and overcoming that first step. And I think the other thing I've learned through dealing with both Sophie and Kate, who's a blind sculler, is actually the impact and the benefit for people that are disabled or have some barrier to rowing is enormous. It's transformational, and I think that sort of word, changing your life, was brought up in the previous conversation, and we're not talking enough about that, I don't think. And so the Love Rowing part, the 25% of the funds that we've agreed with Love Rowing that will go to some club for their adaptive equipment, just to help them that have already got adaptive people in their area, and just want to help them get on the water. So but on Zoom Ergos, it means that all of us can just train at our own level, which is great.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Andy, did you want to say something, or
No, well, I think it's fantastic how we see these sort of glimmers, I'd say, of when the rowing community really does get together and drive it. And I'm sure we're going to get on to Matt and Samaritans in a minute, but before we do, I just want to obviously give a big shout out to Lucy, because
absolutely
we met over Race the Thames last year. We've had a very fruitful relationship since then with the Centurion Challenge and various other things. You obviously were an inspiration then. You've continued to be. You've inspired a whole new event. So you're going to hate me saying all this, I know. I'm sorry, but you're worth it. And it's fantastic to see you back in this event, albeit with friends this time, which I'm very pleased to see. You can hold friends down and
Use your words back to say as little as possible.
Well, Andy, that was lovely, because I also Lucy and I ended up talking transportation, didn't we, when we actually had a chat, and engineering and hydrogen, the future of hydrogen and battery vehicles and trucks. So there we go.
Will it be fuel cells or will it be combustion, and so on and so on.
That's it. I mean, for any young people watching, for females, we have just some incredible role models here. You've got Judith Packer, who designs power stations, or used to. We've got Lucy Radley, who used to drive trucks around the country and now is a truck test driver and a reporter and all sorts, but also the purveyor of crazy rowing events, namely 50, 72k and 100k rowing events solo. So yeah, look, it's great to see you again, Lucy. I'm really pleased you're here. But I think with time pressing on, it would be fantastic to hear from Matt. So I don't know if Judith or Samuel, you want to lead this bit.
Yeah. Matt, I believe you are here. Judith, it would be better for you to just segue into Matt.
Okay, so Matt, do you want to unmute yourself? Brilliant. Well, thank you, Samuel, for that. And Matt, thank you for joining us. And I don't know if you realise that there's quite a few crews supporting Samaritans on this adventure. So maybe just tell us a little bit about what the Samaritans do, why it's needed now more than ever before.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Judith. I should have gone first after hearing about everyone being so inspirational, and you've got me just coming on after this.
No,
I've never been in a rowboat in my life.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I know.
That's going to happen.
Bernie keeps asking me.
That's happening. No. Where do you live, Matt?
Oh, sorry, the signal's gone really bad. I can't hear. I will one day, I promise. So Samaritan. So we're an emotional support helpline, and I think we're mostly known for that helpline 116123, where people contact us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for emotional support, and that's whatever people are going through. Our vision, our mission is for fewer people to die by suicide. And I think because of that, I think people assume that we are just a suicide prevention charity. However, the majority of our calls are from people struggling with everyday issues, things like money, debt, issues with things like addiction, people worried about their health, people worried about relationships. So there's a number of reasons why people contact us, and we get a call every 6 to 7 seconds from someone struggling to cope. Now, since the pandemic, our calls to Samaritans have gone up by about 15% from people worried particularly about health for obvious reasons and money, like things like job security. And we have realized that this pandemic has left a lot of people feeling a lot more lonely, a lot more isolated. And that's through things like cutting off people's social networks. So where people would go out, things like rowing clubs, even people would go out to like the pub or go out to football. And not having those things has really impacted a lot of people's emotional well-being. And so it was really perfect timing when Bernie got in contact, probably about 3 years ago now, when he said, he wanted to do this and highlight the struggle that people are facing with loneliness and isolation. And there was that link with, what Bernie's doing, 90 days on his own. And there's that link with the loneliness and isolation that people feel, especially now. So it's really perfect timing, and it's really brilliant, an opportunity for us to raise awareness, especially for young people, around their own mental health and emotional well-being. So it's brilliant to be a part of this, and around so many obviously amazing, inspirational people, and Bernie as well. As humble as he is, he will play down what he's doing, but it is, when I tell anyone what he's doing, it is actually truly incredible what he is doing, and it's just amazing that we at Samaritans can be a part of this. So thank you, and obviously anyone else as well that's fundraising for Samaritans. Thank you so much.
I think I just wanted to quickly just say that it's what you're saying is so brilliant, because if you heard the interview before with Alex Gregory, there was one point that he put out when he finished where he retired from rowing. There was a point in his life where he felt lonely because he was so much in the crew and in the family sense. When he came out of that, he saw kind of like a difference towards that, and that's kind of like relates to what you guys are doing with especially with mental health, people that do feel lonely, people that do feel like depression, anxiety, and all of that, and how rowing and sport in a sense can actually bring a community together to help each other out.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, spot on, Samuel. And Judith earlier made a really good point actually about the fact that so many of you have not actually met, but you're connecting through Zoom and through this and through rowing. And so that's amazing. So it isn't so much you have to replace, your existing social networks with new social networks, actually physical meeting people. You can actually have that interaction by reaching out remotely.
Most definitely.
And I think there was something, just also picking back to something I've seen on the Samaritans website, and something that Alex mentioned was just that tap on the back, or after an outing, hey, how's things going? Do you want to go for a coffee? I mean, that whole dynamic of a rowing club, especially when there's younger juniors there and families there, it becomes that family actually. And so, I mean, I've countless the parents that I've talked to while stood on the riverbank umpiring, who have given me the most intimate stories about how rowing's changed their life or their son or daughter's life. And that's just because I've, stood on the riverbank for 2 hours sort of thing. And I'm just there. Now, when that's gone away, what replaces it? So I was sort of say, Hannah and I were calling out to each other and say, okay, what next? And I just hope we can continue this sort of conversation, just keep talking about it, and maybe what's the easiest step for us to sort of work out how can we support our coaches, how can we support the whole ecosystem of rowing to help each other, and then train ourselves as what is that easiest first step help. And on the Samaritans website, there's some really good, helpful, structured sort of how to note what you're feeling down. And there's so many similarities with the coaching technique of, okay, record what you've done. So I think there's a really simple next step, a really simple next conversation. I don't know, Hannah, if you want to add anything there to sort of say, you know, what you think. Wow, you know, okay, we've only got a short time here, but what should we do next week to carry on?
I think momentum's going to take us. I'm not sure. I think something might happen quite organically for us as a team. And I think that this challenge has started it. And I can only say, for me, I never thought I'd do 100k on a bike in a week. I never thought I'd do 40k in a day. I'd do 2 sessions. Like this morning, I was, you know, I literally crawled onto the bike and I was like, I can't let everyone down. I would have rolled over and gone to sleep. Jenny, if it hadn't been for I can't let everyone down. And I think, like, having been in a really dark place myself, like, to be here now, it's astonishing taking the first step, where it leads you, but it is about having the courage to take it. And I think we've started some conversations as a team, and I think we just will continue to support each other. And I think that's the next steps we'll take away from it. And then how we have supported each other, I think that then helps us normalize the conversations we might have with other people.
I think if I could jump in, it's something Sophie Wayworth talked about on Tuesday. If you go back and have a look at her interview, she talked about, she did some sports as a young girl. She sort of went into work, stopped work, had family, and she discovered kind of running later in life. And it's taken her to a whole new world of ultramarathons and various things. But she reflects on the moment where you wake up one morning and you're like, oh God, I just can't, a bit stiff. You know, so easy just to be like, oh, you know, snooze and scrap the session. But if you've arranged to meet somebody, if you're going to do that 6K with somebody else, you can't. And it gets you back involved. And once you've sort of set in motion that idea that actually, well, I was a bit stiff, but actually I loosened up and I was pretty good actually by the end of it. You know, I struggle with it. I spent like 12 years in pain, like physical pain, trying to get out of bed. And now I really struggle. If I've done a session 2 weeks ago, I'd be like, oh, still a bit, just, you know, it's so easy for anybody just to hit that snooze button. But that's the power of teams. That's the power of community and society and sort of being social to stitch these things together. And it's why I love the idea of Race the Thames. And it's our mission when we go out to teams. You know, we're telling them, like, look, do it for team building. Get your colleagues together and just have some fun. Do it to get active. You know, you find the one person who'll lead the team who is active and motivated, but their mission is to find those who aren't and actually get them hooked in. And once they're hooked in, encourage them and motivate them to do more. And they'll discover something new about themselves. And then the third way was, like, for that mental health bit, find people who are withdrawn, who have kind of tucked themselves away and they probably aren't in a good place right now. Reach out to them, because, you know, there are some amazing events out there, from park runs, half marathons, great motivational events, but they only reach people who will sign up to them. And that's always the first movers. The power of this event is that we take those first movers and then we give them a mission to find 7 others who won't sign up, who won't take that first step. Draw them out, actually, as a mate, as a colleague. Just say, come on, we can do this. Be like, oh, well, I'm only good for a mile a day. Great, that's all we need. And then by the end of the event, they're doing 5, 6, 7. They're doing more than they ever thought possible. And that's where I think, you know, rowing has an absolutely valuable place in society, because it does that. It's that team idea. And it's not about, and then the sort of, the thing we're held under is performance. You know, that's all the sport is. You only go to slog yourself and high performance. And if you're not wearing a blazer and if you're not thinking, it's not for me. It's like, yeah, that is a big part of the sport and it won't change. But there's this growing part of the sport which actually views it completely differently, has completely different values. And it's much more based on the experience and the community side of it. And that's what really excites me about the future of the sport. That's the bit that I think is going to be the living heart of the sport in 10, 20 years' time. But I think, you know, what Judith's done with this team, what you're displaying now, the things that Lucy was talking about. We had a guy called Dan Barber on yesterday from a company called Clear Course. They've got 11 teams. He started off with one, and they've just completely blown the doors off. But again, he's like, the stories are, you know, we've got these people who never thought they would be doing any exercise in January. And because of Race the Thames and how this thing is working, we've got 88 people. And
amazing.
It's just in terms of that attitude, exactly what you're saying now. We're making a difference. We're making an impact. And that gives me a real sense of pride and joy over what we're doing.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And well, thank you and the team. And I know a little bit of the effort that goes on behind the scenes in the planning. And just a quote, if I can share a quote, because I love your quotes of the day, but a quote from two quotes, actually, being greedy. One from Matt, that when we had a chat earlier week, supporting children now protects them for the future. So it was a bit resilience. And then one from Hannah, it's easier to mend damaged children than to repair broken adults. So, I mean, there's so many quotes. I'm sure you've got a hard job picking which ones, but actually, yeah, rowing is more than that. And maybe we should celebrate those people who either race for the first time, or actually it's their first time in a rowing boat, and celebrate that rather than 3 years down the line when they actually win something, because it's very much more than that. But hey, thank you all very much. It's been a brilliant week.
It's all good. I know we're pressed for time, but thank you, Judith and the team. You brought the whole crew out. Thank you, Matt, from Samaritans. It's been brilliant. I just want to open the floor up to anybody who wants to ask any questions, especially to Matt or to you, Judith, about what they are doing, the brilliant work that they're doing.
Well, anybody.
I'll go for a quick. I'll go out to Bernie. So you'll row across the Atlantic. You know, we've heard of a few teams doing it at the moment. We've got a women's pair who just finished. I think they've just finished. Oh, they're out in the ocean. They're over towards the Caribbean anyway, having just rowed across the Atlantic. I've heard of a few stories. We heard from Alex Gregory doing a bit in the Arctic, but there's got to be something about doing it alone. Like, you're in a boat by yourself, you're going to get pushed off. And I'm sure this is, again, you're not alone. You've got a great team behind you. But at some point, you're going to wave goodbye to them. And the next person you'll see will be at least a month later across the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, in terms of preparing for that, what's kind of going through your head? Is it full of dread and intrigue? What's going on?
I think a mixture of both. I think, Sandy, and great to see you, by the way, as well. Yeah, I think it's a mixture of everything, to be fair. You know, am I scared? Well, yeah, I guess I am, really. Will I be afraid? Yeah. Will I be terrified at times? I guess I will, to be fair, yeah. But yeah, it's the fear of the unknown, I guess. And I think the great thing about the challenge that I'm doing is the organization behind it. So you know, you can't get to the start line without doing a huge amount of preparation and training. And a part of that is obviously psychological training as well, which is fantastic that's now been added. They never did it before, but they added it 2 years ago. So we'll be speaking to a trained psychologist, and a number of people that have actually done it solo as well, which is, as you know, as an amazing athlete as you are, you know, you can gain so much and so much experience by asking others that have gone before you, and to actually glean the information of what they've been through and how they've coped. Really, to me, will be really the best thing I can do is actually sort of speak and reach out to those folks and learn from their experience. But I think really you really won't know until you're actually there, to be fair, Andy. But that's a part of the challenge, I guess.
Yeah, no, well, it's, you know, I think it's an important, I really like the concept of it, because we all take a step at some point and we're going to do it alone, whether it's into a new job, whether it's out of school, whether it's into a college, so many examples. And, you know, okay, pushing the boat off and being cast adrift, as it were, is very, very literal. But the metaphorical emotion, or not, the metaphorical aspects of it, the connections to the emotions are very real. So I think, you know, for all the young people who might watch this from London Youth Rowing and hopefully, you know, beyond, it's, you know, as long, I think I get the message, as long as you have that strong team and the trust in the environment around you, and you've got that resilience, then it'll be okay. But being scared isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No,
it's sharp.
And Andy, I think just picking up on the resilience, that doesn't always mean just superpowers. So Bernie, you shared with us the ukulele, your music list. These are all going to be your coping mechanisms, your joy when you're down, not if you're down, but when you get down.
Absolutely, yeah. There'll be a letter a day from a high school student that I'll be reading, a letter of hope every day, whilst I'm on the water, and I'm going to be learning a new ukulele tune every day. So I'll be singing a tune every day at some stage, weather permitting, of course, on my weatherproof ukulele, which has just arrived, which is pretty cool. So yeah.
And he will have a little friend with him called Wing Commander Andrew Bland, who's a little bear, and they've got a little book as well. Plenty of reading matter for half term. Okay, so and so hopefully he can have a little bit of a cuddle as well. sorry, Bernie.
No, he'll be cuddled in the cabin every night, no problem.
Yeah, cool.
Does anybody else want to ask some questions? Okay. I just want to. Did someone say something?
Yeah, quick one from me.
Yeah,
Lucy.
Bernie, I'm dying to know, how do you weatherproof a ukulele?
Do you know what? I thought it couldn't be done, Lucy. So there's an actual company in Oregon, in USA, that actually make them, and they press them out of molded metal. Molded plastic, and it's incredible. You can throw it in the water, and you can obviously empty it, and then it plays fantastically well. It's a brilliant instrument. So I didn't know it existed until somebody told me. So yeah, it's completely and utterly waterproof. It's made of carbon fiber.
Wow, high performance ukulele then.
Somebody said if you lose your oars, you can use your ukuleles to actually row across.
You got more than one in case one goes overboard.
Yeah, I'm taking two. I'm taking a tenor and I'm taking a soprano. So for any ukulele aficionados, they sound so differently, but you can play great tunes on both. So I'm taking two.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Well, guys, I'll have to end it there. But I just want to thank Bolt of Hope especially, and Matt for coming in and telling us about themselves. Again, as I said in the email to Judith and to the team, I'm very proud of what they've done and how much they've raised as well. I need to check again how much they've raised because it was way past.
Well, we're still plugging away, and I think after your talk, Andy and Alex, we've got to raise it to 2K because, you know, and I know you know this, but for London 2012, I was part of the team to train those young people to boat hold. And the biggest problem I had was everybody wanted to hold your boat, okay? And they were looking at the draw and said, can I go lane 6? Can I lane 6? Anyway, so you've had a massive impact on so many young people. So thank you for using those medals wisely.
All right.
And Samuel, thanks. You've been great. You've been so patient with us. And
I haven't been that good. Well, I've just been there.
Well, that's enough. Hey, you just need to be there. Great. Thank you so much.
That's all right. If you guys want to stay, and it's probably gonna have a chill period now, or who do we have next?
That's it. Right. So, Tom, do you want to take us off?
and we're going to have and we'll just have a very quick chat, and obviously sort of giving you a rundown of the kind of questions we're going to ask you. I think the main thing from our end is just to kind of let you know that we'll be using this, you know, just as part of our promotion of the event as we go into the weekend. We've been doing this every day through Monday through Friday, sort of an hour and a half, catching up with, you know, we've had some celebrity friends, inverted commas, come in, but we've had participants, we've had all sorts on these live streams. And it's been so much fun just sort of getting inspirational advice from people like yourself. And then also sort of, you know, our participants sort of sharing their stories, how they're getting on. Some people have finished, others are still sort of struggling to get there, but it's all for a good cause. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to introduce you to Sam. Sam's one of our program coaches here. And say hi, Sam. How you doing, mate?
All right, Paul. Literally, I'm a big Liverpool supporter, so I know that you play for a club since 2010. Okay. So I watched you quite a lot.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.
So what I'm going to do now, Tom, if you give me the nod when this is flipped over to the arena, which it is now, which is perfect. So welcome, Paul. Paul Konchesky, formerly, you know, I know formerly of sort of Charlton, Tottenham, West Ham, Fulham, Liverpool. You played for a number of Premier League teams and others besides. But most importantly, now in your career, you've moved over to, well, I think at first you were, you know, working with the Hammers Academy there at West Ham from around sort of 2017. Then last year took over as the sort of the new assistant manager of West Ham women's team. So I'm going to hand you over now to the very capable Sam, our programs coaches. I know he's got a couple of questions for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the first question I just wanted to ask you, Paul, is that could you tell us a little bit about your role as an assistant manager of West Ham women's team, and maybe a bit about how important increasing girls' participation in sports at grassroots level?
So my role really is obviously to assist the manager. Obviously, he has the final say of everything that goes on, really. But to be on the grass every day with the girls, and maybe, if you like, giving some experience that some people obviously can't give. I played a lot of football in my career, and like you just said, I've played for many teams. So I've picked up experiences along the way. So if I can pass them experiences back to some young girls, we've got senior girls. They're international, so they're really highly thought of. But if my experience can help them along the way as well, then a part of my role will be to help them and try and make them better. And it won't just make them better; it'll make us as a club and our women's team a lot better and stronger.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. What I also wanted to ask was, what was it like transitioning from being a Premier League footballer to then a coach? Because we know that in the Premier League, there's some Premier League legends that go into coaching and it does go well for them, or it doesn't really go too well for them. Yeah. So what's the transitions like for you?
At first it was okay, because I went from not playing to the boys' side, if you like. So I stayed within the men's side of football. So that transition was okay, because as a kid I knew growing up what it took. I ended up playing football for my career, which every boy's dreams of, and it's the best job if you can. So that transition to help them younger boys, like I just spoke about, trying to help the girls, was a little bit easier because I've been through that. But when I got asked to come the assistant manager with the women, as much as people think it's football, it's the same. It's not. It's you have to think of different morals that ladies and girls have, and just the way you speak. You know, you get away with it a little bit more on the men's side, speaking a bit arrogantly or a bit aggressively. But the girls and the ladies you can't speak to them like that. And that was a big change in my eyes for coming from men's side to the ladies. It is the way you are around the ladies and the way you have to speak to the ladies and the girls to try and get things across.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant on what you said, because it transitions a little bit into the next question. The differences between the men's and the women's the words that you can say, especially as we're as LYR, we're focusing more trying to get the participation of girls up. What's the differences? Like, how do you girls think in the way, like, what's the incentives on how where they want to do sport or where they rather not do sport? But also just with you as coaching, what was the differences between you as a player day-to-day life to you now as a coach?
That's a good question, because when you are playing, your routine's really the same every day. You wake up, you go to training, you have breakfast, you have your lunch, and you go home. So you don't see the other side of what happens in a football club or a football team or the other side of the coaches that's helping. So becoming a coach is it's an eye-opener, because I wasn't that good on computers. So I've had to learn how to go on the computer and how to do presentations and PowerPoints. But from being at the training ground from like 7:30 in the morning to like 5, 6 o'clock at night. So the transition in that way was completely different, because as a player, you turn up, everything's done for you. You go out on the grass and you play. Yeah. But being obviously the coach that has to do that and prepare that is obviously now that's my learning now. And if you like, going back to like being back at school, learning the trade and hoping to do it the right way and succeed in that.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So just moving on to Race the Thames, like how did you find out about it? How did you get involved?
We've got a psychologist lady here, and I think her partner's really indulged in it. So she asked if I think it was 8 of us, if we could get a team of 8. We need to obviously do the Race the Thames Monday to, I think it was a 7-day challenge or whatever. And I did say to her at the time, like, Jen, I'd love to do it, but I've still got that competitiveness, so I don't want to lose. So we need to get a team that we don't lose. No, listen, she asked, and to be fair, a lot of the guys and girls wanted to do it, and it's been fantastic. Every little bit helps, and some people hasn't done anything, but now they've started to do it all because of this challenge. So it's fantastic to get people out to just, even if they're walking, to get a bit of fitness and fresh air and get their bodies moving.
No, that's brilliant. I'm glad that you still have that competitive edge that you don't want to lose.
I can't get rid of it at the moment.
Sorry, Ollie, did you want to say something?
What I was just going to ask is just about, in terms of our Race Thames participants. I mentioned at the top of the call, Paul, we've got a few teams that have finished, and we've still got some. We've got 3 days left. And as a former professional athlete, very successful, obviously professional athlete, and now you're still very much in sort of the professional athletic world. When you were talking to your women as assistant manager, West Ham women's ladies, and they're knackered, they come off at half time, and maybe the first half hasn't gone quite so well. But just in terms of, any advice that you might have for our Race the Thames, they're all coming sort of towards the end of their challenge, but, something that any bit of wisdom that you might be able to impart on them when it comes to endurance and sort of keeping going and that mental side of it as well, potentially.
I've been part of that, and you wake up and you can't get out of bed, or your body's tired, and like you say, obviously our girls or whoever's doing the running, the bikes, your legs are tired, and in your head your body's tired. But I think more mentally, if you can just get out and do that next one, I think you get through it like that. And for myself, sometimes I wake up, I can't be bothered to go and do these 5, 10Ks, whatever we're doing. But if I get out and I do start doing it, I feel so much better for it. So really and truly, the advice I could give is don't let your head tell you can't do it. You can go out and do it, even if it's a bit slower. If you can get yourself out to do it, you'll feel so much better for it.
That's amazing. That's such a great answer. And Paul, I know we've got to let you go in a minute. So I just want to ask you one last question. As a bit of a selfish one from me, just as somebody who's played for England, like yourself. And obviously that's a dream for a lot of kids, that myself included. And I'm sure a lot of the guys and girls on this call. I just wanted to ask you about, that first time playing for England specifically. Got off on a tangent here, but just wanted to sort of, take you back to that moment, because I always felt like, that's a dream for so many kids, and that was something that you managed to fulfill, aside from everything else in your career. But specifically, what was it like sort of, running out for England that time?
At first, it was nerve-wracking. You get that call. I obviously deserved the call up. And no disrespect, I was playing for Charlton at the time, so no disrespect to Charlton. They're not a Liverpool, Man United, or Chelsea, so they weren't one of the bigger clubs. So turning up and you see Beckham and Paul Scholes and Ferdinand and Gerrard, sometimes you do feel, should I be in this room? Because even from, like, obviously me being a bit starstruck, you play against them and it don't normally matter, but sitting at a dinner table is it's like, wow, I should be here or shouldn't I be here? But I'm here, so you need to like buck your ideas up and get on with it. But just being there, and at the time it was at Upton Park. I'm a West Ham fan, so to run out for my country at West Ham was dreams of dreams. Really, it couldn't have happened at a better place, and obviously for my country, it was a massive thing for me and my family.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that answer, Paul. I'm just going to open it up now because Paul does have to go. But if we have one final question, because I know Sam and I have sort of been asking the questions, if anyone had anything else that they might want to ask Paul before he has to go.
I was going to ask hi, Paul. Sorry, my name's Ikem, one of the coaches at OAR. We've actually met, but you might not remember.
Okay.
But I'm a big advocate for women's participation in sport. My brother's currently assistant manager at Harlow Town Ladies with Rudy, who you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a couple leagues below West Ham. So what I wanted to know was for a big name like yourself in the football industry, like, do you feel like more big names on the men's side need to transition to the women's side to increase the awareness of women in sport?
I think it will go that way. I think as the football and the ladies' sports in general get bigger, especially obviously now we know the WSL is getting bigger. It's on Sky, and I think as that starts changing it a little bit more, I think there will be more men, or if you like, bigger names dropping into the women's football or women's sport. And I think it'd be a massive thing if you can get bigger names, if you like, if that's how we want to use them, the bigger so-called names in the ladies' sports, because that would only give it another massive push.
Yeah, that's amazing. Hopefully, you might see us Harlow in the same league in a couple of years, and hopefully you come up and smash.
Hopefully you come up, we don't come down. Yeah.
No, that's fair enough.
Thank you so much for your time, Paul. It's really much appreciated for you jumping in here. We wish you all the best for West Ham Ladies, and for your team's completion of Race the Thames, if you haven't done already, which they might well have with you on board. And we'll let you go. So thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us.
No, anytime, guys. Thank you very much, and good luck, and hopefully to be involved again soon.
Awesome. Cheers, mate. Have a good one, yeah?
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, people. Bye-bye.